Welcome to our Final Four OTT special. We've gotten this far in the NCAA tournament. I think it's evident by now that we don't know what we're talking about. I don't think anybody in the country picked a perfect bracket unless you went to UConn, San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, or maybe Miami. Those are the four national semifinalists. And outside of those four schools, even if you include those campuses, I don't think many people would have thought that's who'd be representing men's basketball at the national stage. So a lot of upsets along the way. Obviously, it's since seeding restarted in 1985, it is the second highest combination of seeds available. Florida Atlantic is a 9 seed who made it to the Final Four. There are no number 1 seeds, no number 2 seeds. I think the tournament's wide open. But ultimately, how did we get here? How did these teams end up being the teams that represent the country?
It's wild, right? And I think that's the question everybody's asking right now is how does this happen? How does, Purdue loses in the first round, then in the second round, Kansas is a surprise. Alabama starts falling off. Who was the other one?
I know. Houston got knocked off.
Yep.
That was my national champion pick.
And that was Sweet 16. So, yeah, it's wild. Nobody saw this coming. And I was talking to you about this earlier. If I'm a Florida Atlantic fan, if I am a San Diego State fan, this is the time when I'm spending my life savings to be at this sporting event because this is the pinnacle of where you can get.
That makes sense, but ultimately you got to ask yourself, have San Diego State fans been paying attention, really? I think they have, but ultimately, it's not a big fan base. Miami doesn't have a big basketball fan base. I think UConn does, but the other 3 schools don't exactly have that big national following. So for some people, they're like, oh, cool, we made it to the Final Four. Maybe I'll go. I can't name a player on the team, but it'll be fun to go to Houston and check out Reliance Stadium or whatever it's called now.
Yeah, NRG Stadium. But yes, that's why it's called March Madness, because it's the craziest tournament in sports. No 1, 2, or 3 seeds are in the Final Four for the first time ever, so it's absolutely crazy. And one thing that I can't get over is how did Florida Atlantic get this far? Jerome Ting, the head coach at Kansas State, said when they beat them in the Elite Eight, when Florida Atlantic beat Kansas State in the Elite Eight, said that you're the best team, keep going, don't get a hot head, keep riding. So we'll see if the Owls can keep riding on this hot streak, but they haven't really been that impressive in all of their games. I think they've won the 4 tournament games by a combined 19 points, which hasn't been really that impressive, but they're there, and that's all that counts. They're still alive, they're still dancing. That's all that matters.
You mentioned the Elite Eight. We want to go back around, talk about the Sweet 16, talk about the Elite Eight. Of course, Florida Atlantic beat Tennessee, and then they beat Kansas State. Kansas State, of course, beat Michigan State at Madison Square Garden before falling, in the Elite Eight in that regional semifinal game to Florida Atlantic, as you mentioned. So, Michigan State was the only Big Ten team to make it to a Sweet 16, which really was surprising considering some people were parading it as the best conference in the country. But I really don't think you can use this NCAA tournament to talk about what conference is the best, because there is no ACC team in the Final Four. There is no Big Ten team.
Excuse me,
there is
and
no
they
Big
won
Ten
the regular
team.
season title.
There is no Big 12 team in the Final Four. There's no Big East team in the Final Four, as great as Marquette was, you know what I mean?
UConn.
It's like, listen, I thought UConn was in the American Conference, but my apologies.
Big East,
See, things get shuffled around, I lose track. But I think that's the point about these conferences. We go all regular season debating who's the best. And it's just about who's the hottest team in March, who can win 6 games, really. Isn't that what it all comes down to?
That's all it comes down to, is who's hot at the right time of the year, and I think this year it's UConn. If you look at every single game in the tournament, they've won by more points each game. 14 points round 1, 15 round 2, 23 in the Sweet 16, and 28 against Gonzaga in the Elite Eight. They've been the hottest team by far in the tournament. They have a really great story. They started out the season 15-0. Their head coach wanted to quit basketball 30 years ago because he was going through a tough time in his life. Now he's in the Final Four. It's been an unbelievable ride. They've been the hottest team in the country. It's not even close, and I think they're going to just cruise to the championship. But I've been wrong this entire time that we've had the special. So
we all have, but they're not just the hottest team. I think they're the best suited for March. We talk about guard play. They have it. We talk about big people inside. They don't, live through the bigs, but they've got size, which is how they beat Gonzaga. They had the size in the middle to match up with Timmy and the Zags. So all of a sudden, you look at this UConn team. I think diehard basketball fans know what conference they're in, know what league they're in, all this other stuff. people don't know who's coaching UConn. It's like, is it Kevin Ollie? You know, what happened to that Calhoun guy? Like, it's been a couple of years. You know, like, people don't know a lot about this UConn team because it just seems every couple of years they pop up in the Final Four with a different coach or a different person leading the program.
Yep, they fell off for a few years, and you know, they make the move from the American Athletic Conference to the Big East, which previously was all Catholic schools. They had nicknamed it the Catholic 10. Now they're the only public university in the Big East. And, you know, it's interesting because on this very couch last week, we were talking about UCLA and Gonzaga, and I think rightfully so, Nate Belt, who's not here today, had said that is going to be the game of the tournament, and it was. It didn't look like it was going to be. You know, Gonzaga had a great lead, and UCLA came right back. Gonzaga, you know, pulled it out at the end, and then we kind of thought that the winner of that game was going to have not an easy path to the Final Four, but certainly they were the favorite. And that Gonzaga versus UConn game, not even close, never in doubt. The UConn Huskies came out. So if, you know, I think that if you want to put a favorite, not only because they're the highest seed in this Final Four, but also they're the hot hand, as you mentioned. But then again, in this tournament where everything that you expected to happen hasn't happened, maybe that's not the smart money to make.
That leads me to my second point here. The NCAA tournament is a lot of fun. Everyone loves the NCAA tournament. Everyone loves the upsets. But what I always say is, you know, the NCAA tournament's no fun when you're Goliath. You know, everybody loves these David and Goliath matchups, but when your team is the big favorite, and let's say Michigan State is a 2 seed, loses to Middle Tennessee State as a 15, everyone thinks that's fun unless you're a Spartan. So you look at this team like Miami, and while they might become the nation's darlings along with Florida Atlantic, if you're an Indiana fan or a Texas fan, you might not like the Miami Hurricanes that much. But I got to feel that both of you think there's probably a little bit of solace in losing to the national champ.
I mean, I'd prefer them to lose. I don't really, I don't want to see them win. I mean, it'd be cool to say that they won and that you lost to the champion, but it doesn't make the loss that Texas had sting any less. It still stinks. And it was a game that you thought Texas had, that they had in the bag. Their best player wasn't playing in the game, and they still had a chance. But Miami, again, we talk about hot hands. Miami has beat really tough teams in Indiana, Houston, and now Texas too. So maybe they have the hot hand too, and they controlled Indiana, they controlled Houston. Against Texas, they didn't really control most of the game, but down the stretch, I felt like the basket was just like had a 10-foot diameter. It was unbelievable how every single shot they took just winning, it seemed like. So Miami's been really good too.
They just outplayed Indiana. I mean, that game wasn't a fluke. It wasn't like a last-second thing.
You said at halftime of the Miami-Texas game, we asked you, of course, you're a Texas fan, how do you feel? And at halftime, you had the lead, but you said, I don't feel comfortable because they've hit a lot of three-point baskets that I just don't think are going to fall in the second half. And, you know, Mark, you gave me a really tough time on this very couch last week.
What do you mean?
About, what do you mean? About my Indiana Hoosiers losing to Miami. Yeah. So, you know, if you weren't able to join us for that March Madness special, I want to take you back in time. Let's take a look at a clip of what Mark said last week.
Yeah. Sure. Well, now you can have fun with them losing to a 16.
So whenever Texas loses, I'm not looking forward to it because I know it's not going to be a great day for me. I know comeback is
Mark.
As a lifelong Miami Hurricanes fan,
I just know.
Let's throw out the U, baby.
Who's Miami owns the state of Indiana. So
what's that really good pitcher on the San Diego Padres? What's his first name? Darvish. What's
you? Crank that soldier boy.
All right. Well, back in real time, Mark, check it out. I don't know how it happened, but I became the world's biggest Miami Hurricanes fan overnight. It's amazing. I did not spend $38 to get a custom T-shirt made, but you know, and
hey, to be fair, mine said Indonesia, not Miami.
That is true. That is true. But you funded the money for that whole project, so congratulations. This is part of your comeuppance. And in contrast to your take where you want to see them lose, you know, I think I'm kind of with Jamal's original point. If Indiana's going to lose, I want to see them lose to the best. I want to not think that heartbreak that you and I both went through was for nothing. So I'll be pulling for them against UConn. And as far as the other side of the bracket, I will be rooting for Florida Atlantic. You know, you've got Dusty May. He is an Indiana University product. Never played college basketball, by the way. He was a student manager under Bobby Knight. Wow. And just came up the ranks along the way, and now he's coaching a Final Four team. So very cool story about him. In relation
to Sean May and the other Mays with Indiana?
I have no clue.
Okay, should have asked a follow-up question. My apologies.
A few years ago, Scott Drew, the head coach at Baylor, won the national championship. He also never played college basketball either. So it's definitely happened before, also from Indiana.
You mentioned the other side of the bracket, you know, and you're talking about these other teams. I can't shake it. You say, okay, if we lose to the eventual national champ, it's good. Michigan State lost to Kansas State in a game that went to overtime, and then you look at how the rest of the tournament plays out, and you go, man, I would have loved to have played a 9 seed in Florida Atlantic with a chance to go to a Final Four and play San Diego State and hope that Tom Izzo's infinite experience would have made sense. I can't help but shake. You know, Mark mentioned that it doesn't make the loss feel any better. You know, Michigan State losing in overtime in a game they honestly had no business winning. They got outplayed bad. The Kansas State point guard had 20 points and 19 assists, like he was the second coming of Isaiah Thomas. You know, so all of a sudden you look up and you lose that game and you look at the rest of the tournament, it's like, man, what could have been? But as you guys said, teams are hot. You know, San Diego State, Florida Atlantic in the Final Four for the first time ever. Florida Atlantic in the NCAA tournament for only the second time ever, and they make a Final Four run. The Aztecs have been here, done that before. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard and a couple other guys come out of that program, but they've never been this far. How much do you guys think experience plays into it, or at this point is just the hottest team wins?
I think none of these teams have ever, none of the players have ever played in the Final Four. A lot of the coaches haven't really been to a Final Four ever, so experience doesn't bode that well just because not many players, coaches have the experience. One coach does have the experience, Brian Dutcher, the head coach at San Diego State, who has that Michigan tie. He was an associate head coach for the Wolverines in the 90s, went to the Final Four in the 93, helped recruit the Fab Five, so he knows what he's been there before, but it's been 30 years. So, I mean, he has that experience, but it's been so long when it's happened. So who knows if they're going to be able to carry it over. He's going to be able to carry it over, but I think, yeah, it's just a hot hand. Whoever plays the best, who's got the hot hand on the biggest stage.
You know, I kind of think the same thing. The UConn fan base certainly has the experience of being at this stage before, but none of these kids do. And at the end of the day, they're the ones who have to play the game. So it's interesting. I would say that UConn is the favorite, but it kind of might be one of those situations where whoever handles the bright lights, I mean, all of a sudden you're playing in a football stadium. I know Florida Atlantic, their stadium capacity back home in Boca Raton, I think, is only like 2,500. So compared to, even if it isn't the ratings getter that, you know, a Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Kentucky Final Four would be, this is still a football stadium, and it's going to be a hot ticket, and it's going to be hard to get over those bright lights. But, you know, I think whoever has the most mental toughness going to be cutting down the nets.
Do you bring out the measuring tape like Hoosiers? It's a 10-foot goal. It's 94 feet
94 feet. The free throw line is 15 feet.
This might be a great time to get your Gene Hackman on, guys.
Oh my! I'll say this: you don't make it to the NCAA Final Four without handling the bright lights. I think the regional title, the regional championship games are played at some of the biggest venues. I mean, Florida Atlantic went to Madison Square Garden and came out with a win. So you want to talk about bright lights.
Yeah, that's true.
That's handling the bright lights, right? But at this point in time, who's the best team in the country? Of the 4 left, I think UConn is the best team left of these 4 squads. Mark said it like we've all been wrong this entire time, but I really got UConn taking the whole thing. Obviously, it wouldn't surprise me if Miami did it as well with the way the Hurricanes are playing, but I think UConn's the best team left. I got the Huskies winning another national championship.
5th.
Somebody on Twitter was saying that, like, why isn't UConn a blue blood? The only critique I have of that is they're, like, either really, really good or they're missed the tournament bad. Like UConn doesn't really seem to have an in-between. It's either they're so good that they have these players like Kemba Walker, they have, Emeka Okafor, they have
Jeremy
their,
Lamb was good,
the Rip Hamiltons of the world, the Ray Allens of the world. They either have these guys or they completely miss the tournament altogether and they stink. So I don't think UConn has the national prestige to be a blue blood, but if they win this national championship, they're in that right next tier. They might not be one of the 5 best programs in the country, but they'll be number 6, in my opinion.
I mean, they're exactly what you said. They are in and out and in and out to the point where you kind of forget about them. And then when they make a run like this, you're like, oh yeah, UConn's pretty good.
I forgot. I couldn't remember what conference they were in. I'm over here like, they're in the American, right? And Mark's like, no, they're in the Big East.
And I don't think any of us were really talking about them being able to make this kind of run.
As a full, right.
You established at the beginning of this, we know nothing.
Right.
And neither does anybody
I want to
else.
give a shout out to our station-wide bracket, though. Jeff Van Sickle's the only one who still has a champion left standing. He's got UConn, so maybe we should talk to Jeff about
We had a
the
really
tournament.
big station bracket. People picked, Alabama. They picked Houston as a champion. They picked Kansas. Some people picked Purdue. We're not naming names. Like, there were a lot of people.
I didn't pick Purdue.
There were a lot of people that picked a lot of different teams. One guy picked UConn. And when I saw that, I went, why? Joke's on us. Jeff Van Sickle might have been right all along. He might win this office bracket.
You know what's crazy is I haven't looked at that bracket in 2 weeks because I was out weekend 1.
So NCAA tournament's always a lot of fun. The brackets are always a lot of fun. We thank you for joining us on these OTT specials. We're going to wrap it up with this Final Four. Like I said, I got UConn. You make your pick. Who you got?
Yeah, I got Miami. I got the U.
One more troll job.
I've got UConn beating Florida Atlantic, and I just hope it's a good championship game. I'm just hoping it's close. I don't care who wins, but I got UConn.
For sure. We'll see if we know a little bit, but probably not.
Probably not.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.